Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
7:07 on O'Connor and Company. It's Friday, and we're in love, and we're happy about it. Coming up at 8:05, Mr. Chairman, the gentleman from Ohio, the gentleman who's made shirt sleeves cool again. Ditch the jacket. It's Jim Jordan, chair of the House Judiciary Committee, joining us then. It's Larry O'Connor here with Patrice Onwuka there. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning.
Joining
Happy
us right.
Friday.
Hey,
Yes,
thank you.
right.
I was waiting.
Yes,
A little
yes.
slow on the uptake with your Happy Friday. Joining us right now, Jonathan Fahey, friend of the program. He's an attorney, and he is a former acting director of ICE. What a sad turn of events over the last several days here, Mr. Fahey. Of course, the loss of any human life is horrible. As Vice President J.D. Vance said yesterday, the death of Renee Nicole Good in Minneapolis was a tragedy of her own making. Can you expand on that, please, Mr. Fahey? And also, sort of looking to the future, what's it looking like right now for ICE agents, Border Patrol agents on the ground doing their job? What's it looking like for them, and what's the best plan for the future, considering what we saw this week?
Yeah, on the first part, I think J.D. Vance, his press conference was amazing yesterday. But, yeah, it was a tragedy of her own making. But I would just add to that, it was of the making of basically the Democratic Party that has been encouraging people to confront ICE, to subvert ICE and its legitimate mission by calling them names, by doing all of these things to stir people up, to create confrontations. And we've been talking about this on your show and other shows that, bad things are going to happen if these Democratic politicians don't dial things back and tell people to, hey, make your voice heard. Everyone should do that if they want, but get out there. You can't have a country where when you don't disagree with the law, you just interfere with law enforcement. There's no historical analog for this that I could think of that it's so widespread. And I think, but the real quick on the facts of the situation, everything I've seen, this really does seem like a classic case of self-defense, defense of others. This officer acted, I don't know the specifics of his training, but I know these types of situations have handled these types of things before. He seems to have acted consistently with all of his training, and these agents are told and that they're trained, and it makes sense that a car is a deadly weapon. She was not free to leave, and he did what he was supposed to do and required to do, defending himself and to defend others. So I think, ultimately this will not result in him having any federal charges. I do think there's a chance the state will try to charge him anyway. And then secondarily, I think ICE is going to continue on with their mission. And I think, they're not going to be deterred by this because that's the intention.
Well, and very good. They shouldn't be deterred because it's important when you consider what these ICE agents were actually pursuing prior to the incident, taking dangerous criminals, maybe violent, murderers, child sex predators off the streets. Would love for you to talk a little bit about training, because I know we're going to hear this, particularly from news outlets and pundits and analysts on the left who are now going to say that somehow ICE agents are not being trained properly, or that they need to be trained in different ways. Can you talk about the training that ICE agents have in situations like this where there's an escalation of tensions?
Yeah, like typically ICE agents or any federal law enforcement, they're trained at a place called FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and they get use of force training, and basically they, certain situations, when's it appropriate to use force, how much force, things of that nature. So they all get this. The ICE agents are getting the same training of all federal agents. So in this situation, what these guys did, the first thing they did that's also really important is this woman was not free to leave. She was under arrest when they told her to get out of the car. So she first defies an order and attempts to flee. So she's already had been obstructing justice, which is a felony. She's then fleeing law enforcement. So that's another factor they would put into the the totality of the circumstances, and then she starts driving directly at an ICE officer. And I've heard some reports like, I think it was Washington Post, no less, talked about the car was, not going in going in a different direction. It's like, that's like saying a gun was pointed 6 inches from my head, not directly at me, so I didn't have a right to shoot back. It's utterly insane. A car can be turned or moved, and the idea that the officer should have been focusing on her, not the wheels of the car or anything else. Right. So the officer did what he's supposed to do and take down the threat.
Oh, it's maddening. First of all, there's ice on the road. Second of all, it's a split-second decision. Third of all, the officer does not have the benefit of frame-by-frame analysis that some journalist at the Washington Post has.
That's right.
Finally, when the Washington Post makes a mistake, they can issue a correction and no one's life is lost. This cop makes a mistake, he's dead, his fellow officers are dead, civilians are dead. You don't have that luxury. That's why we live by rules here, Mr. Fahey. That's why we all have to follow basic civilizational rules. When someone in authority gives you a lawful order, you follow that order. Nobody gets killed. 99.9% of the time. We're speaking with Jonathan Fahey, former acting director of ICE. To follow up on this, are you not surprised, but are you disheartened that not one Democrat elected official took the opportunity yesterday to get in front of a camera and say, guys, I'm with you, I oppose Trump, I oppose these policies, but we need to step back, do not engage directly with these officers, no more direct actions here. You can protest, but you stay on the sidewalk. You go ahead and scream as loud as you want, but stop with the direct engagement because that's not how we do things.
You would like to think there's some adults in the Democratic Party, and I say saved, John Fetterman. No one else ever comes out in that direction at all, and it just shows what the Democratic Party really is and what they really want. They want this open borders, mass amnesty, and they're basically willing to do anything to achieve it. And you have people like, Tim Walz, you could do hours on just sort of making fun of him, but on a few serious notes, he gets up there and does this press conference. I don't remember which one, but he's basically the result of this all is, well, now ICE should leave the city. And it's like, well, that actually is the opposite of what should happen.
Well, that's because he doesn't want ICE looking into his fraudulent behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do have to wonder, there's a lot of scrutiny on him, so now let's turn the tables, try to make ICE more the bad guy and attack them. But you're right, there's no Democrat, that I can think of, other than Fetterman, that will ever stand up there and say something mature on this level.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
We're continuing now with Jonathan Fahey, former acting director of ICE. Go ahead and finish your thought, and then Patrice wants to come back at you, Jonathan.
A real quick thought on, Tim Walz made some comment about protecting democracy, the nonsense the Democrats always put out there. But I just wanted to point out there's nothing more democratic about ICE enforcing the law. These are laws passed by elected officials, and ICE is a part of the executive branch enforcing the laws. So the people that are opposing ICE are the ones being anti-democratic. If the Democrats want open borders and mass amnesty, they should run on it, get elected, and pass legislation. But they know they can't achieve that, so they have to use these subversion activities, which is shameful. But go ahead, Patrice.
Well, would love to talk about kind of the different levels of law enforcement here. People are saying, well, why weren't local law enforcement involved? Why weren't the police involved? Talk to us about why some of these local police forces are not part of or accompanying or, whatever the case is, these ICE raids and ensuring that there's a local presence.
Well, I think places like Minneapolis, you have a mayor and you have the governor of Minnesota that they are anti-ICE, and they don't let their law enforcement cooperate with ICE in any respect. And so, part of it, I think somebody made the comment, why didn't they notify locals that they were doing this or doing that? And it's like, well, because they know the local authorities will try to undermine their efforts and might put them at greater risk. So but where it works well, where people work well with ICE, you don't hear about it. You don't hear about the protests, places like Florida and stuff, because they're just making things safer and better without all of this nonsense. But unfortunately, Minnesota, you can't you should be able to work together, but the politicians won't allow it.
Well, and isn't it so that in non-sanctuary jurisdictions, you don't see raids going on because when there's a criminal illegal alien in custody, that handover to ICE agents happens in the safety of a county jail?
Yeah, exactly. And what could make more sense, right? An arrest that occurs in a jail so no one is in danger, it doesn't take a lot of resources, and the bad guy never hits the streets again. It's a great thing.
Yeah, in a sanctuary city, though, they don't notify ICE when somebody who has an open detainer is released. They release them quietly, and then ICE is left to their own devices to have to find the guy. That's what's going on here. Jonathan Fahey, as former acting director of ICE, you understand the rules of engagement and the law and how these, there's different layers of authority and jurisdiction. I'm hearing from a lot of armchair analysts on cable news that claim, in relation to what happened in Minneapolis this week, the tragedy, they claim that ICE didn't have any jurisdiction here, that they couldn't lawfully detain this woman. They're only there to look for people who have stayed in the country illegally and broken immigration laws. She had every right to drive away from these armed men that she felt were intimidating her, and that she didn't have to follow their lawful orders. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, she was obstructing them and doing their jobs, and they have a right to detain her for that and I'll actually arrest her for that. So, yeah, they have absolutely the right to do so. And these agents
they'll follow up and say, no, that's for Minneapolis police to handle if she's obstructing traffic or things like that. That's not for ICE authorities. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just that's what they're claiming.
Yeah, I think that's what they would claim, but she was obstructing, by doing so, she was obstructing them and doing their job, which is immigration enforcement, or these agents have the authority to enforce other federal laws as well. So, yes, she cannot do that, and if they give her a lawful order, she has to comply. And it's just like if you get pulled over for speeding and you really weren't speeding, you don't get to just go barreling through the officer and fight the officer because if the radar gun was not working or something like that. It's insane.
Yeah.
And, so...
You adjudicate that after the fact, but in the heat of the moment, you follow the police orders. Yeah.
So thinking about the investigation at the federal level, I mean, we're hearing now some of the local and state officials are upset. They feel like the FBI, DOJ, I guess they're going to be taking over this investigation, and they're upset that they're not getting information. The local officials probably obviously want to charge this officer, ICE officer, and so how do you see these investigations playing out, particularly at the federal level, and then what's going to happen at the state level?
Well, just first of all, broad point, they don't really need to do a joint investigation. The FBI does these things routinely, and they'll do it well. And also, just a real quick secondary point, when you have the locals that are calling you Nazis and other stuff, it's probably not a great partnership to begin with. But here's my prediction will happen. The federal government will look into, they will do an amazing investigation. It will be thorough. They will totally clear this officer. If the state then wants to charge him, here's where the state will have problems. They'll be able to charge him, but it will get removed to federal court and dismissed under the Constitution under the Supremacy Clause and what's referred to as federal officer immunity or Supremacy Clause immunity. It's a doctrine that's been in place since, I believe, 1876. I might have the year wrong, but basically 140, 150 years. So it will be dismissed. So this idea that they can charge him is true. The idea that they can convict him, it's not going to happen. But in Minnesota, they will try to charge him because Jacob Fry already determined he's guilty. Tim Walz seems to, and now he's sort of backtracked that. But they want a pound of flesh. They want to look like they're fighting ICE. So unfortunately, this officer will have to get, may end up getting dragged through a process unnecessarily.
You said the Democrats sort of want this chaos, and that may be so. It might help them politically. I also think, honestly, in the case of Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, James Fry, Mayor Fry, based on what we've seen and based on what we know about the fraud and corruption and what's going on there in their city and state, I think they're genuinely afraid. Of the forces at work here, and they don't want to be on the wrong side of these issues because they're either politically afraid or I think they might even fear for their physical well-being, frankly, if they don't come out and say, yes, this was murder and we oppose all of it. we got to leave it there. I have more questions for you, Jonathan Fahey, but I am a slave to the morning show clock, so we have to leave it right there. But don't be a stranger. There's a lot of stuff going on that you can speak to that is vitally important. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks so much, sir.
Thank you.
That's Jonathan Fahey. He's your former acting director of ICE. Kind of knows what he's talking about. It's 7:23.
Absolutely. All right, let's stick with the ice news. We've got coverage on what's going on in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. You won't believe what Maryland is proposing. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 7:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37. Good morning. O'Connor and Company here with Larry and Patrice. Coming up at 8:05, we'll speak with Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio. He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee. Plenty to talk with him about. If you missed our conversation just now with Jonathan Fahey, acting director of ICE, make sure you subscribe to our podcast. You can get that download because it was a very informative interview. Larry O'Connor here, Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning, Larry.
By the way, our friend and our colleague and our sister, Julie Gunlock, is still feeling under the weather and not in great health. So we wish her the best, and our prayers are with her. And if all of our listeners could just share some prayers for Julie as well, we would very much appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So, because there was a officer-involved ICE shooting in Minneapolis against clearly a well-trained protester whose specific design was to interfere with and disrupt ICE exercises and duties, and because she refused to comply with the lawful orders given to her and then used her car as a deadly weapon, accelerated right towards an ICE officer, she tragically lost her life due to that ICE officer properly, through his training, discharging the weapon to protect his safety and those around him. Because of that, now, I lay that out there. You all know what happened in Minneapolis. Now, if you're a Democrat elected official in Maryland, D.C., or Virginia, you now immediately want to take action against ICE officers and future state officers in Maryland who may have been affiliated with ICE. You connect those dots for me, and you make logical sense out of it. But this is typical Democrats using the power of their office to punish people who don't. Even if you think this ICE officer acted improperly, what one Assembly member, Delegate Adrian Boafo from Prince George's County, is he your?
Oh my goodness!
Is he your guy, Patrice?
Yes,
there you go. So he's doing this in your name. He's doing this in your name. He is proposing a bill now that he will put forth in Annapolis that would prohibit any ICE agents hired during the Trump administration from ever applying to become a Maryland law enforcement officer in the future. Now,
that is astoundingly
explain the logic
stupid.
behind that. Of course
it's astoundingly stupid, Larry. But this is both the tactic to cancel ICE agents and then to demoralize ICE agent the recruitment efforts for anyone considering a career in law enforcement. This is profoundly stupid, and I'm disappointed in Mr. Boafo. I've connected with him on other issues, and he seemed to have been reasonable. So maybe I can reason with him. But just the language, he says ICE is a, quote, lawless paramilitary front that has inflicted catastrophic damage upon the people of Maryland. Please, sir, explain.
Yeah,
because
sadly,
I haven't seen any catastrophic damage.
I don't think you can reason with him, and I would hesitate to call him up if you've got a pothole problem there in Prince George's County, because he's not focusing on what's his job is there as a dog. But this is typical, by the way, of the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area here. The DMV, the kids like to call it, is that every politician here thinks that they're on the road to the White House. They think that they have to dabble in and involve themselves in in federal politics and national politics, especially if you're a Democrat, and it means virtue signaling against Trump. Also, I think there's something else at play here. Everyone will be watching this legislative session in Annapolis because Wes Moore wants to run for president, and Wes Moore is running for re-election in 2026. You're going to see some insane stuff put forth by the likes of Delegate Boafo and other Democrats. And this is Wes Moore's opportunity to triangulate. This is Wes Moore's opportunity to say, oh, I'm going to veto that because I'm not a radical, even though he is. He's an absolute and he will do whatever his radical, puppet string masters tell him to do so that he can further his political career because he's a narcissist. But this is his opportunity to say, oh, I'm not like one of those crazy Democrats. I'm reasonable. And the media will start calling Wes Moore moderate. This is what will happen. I'm telling you right now. Meanwhile, down in Virginia, Mark Warner, who used to pretend to be a moderate, put this out. He said Republicans passed a $75 billion budget for ICE, bigger than almost every military on earth. That is so disingenuous. Hey, let's compare, please. That is outrageous.
How big is our nation compared to most nations from population size?
Thank you. And I'd love to compare our ICE budget to other countries who don't have open borders for 4 years like they did under your president. The reason why they don't need an ICE budget so high or a military budget so high is because they actually have border control, which you refuse to enforce, Senator Warner, under your President Biden. That's okay. Then they said they've deployed thousands of poorly vetted agents. There's no evidence to prove that. Is there evidence that any
when does the left care about vetting people? Come on now.
Yeah, thank you. Tim Walz was vetted to be vice president. Please, give me a break.
What about the people not vetted coming from the southern border? Okay, Larry, sorry.
Agents act with impunity because this administration acts like they can. ICE is not above the law. We need a full, real investigation. So he wants ICE investigated. The entire agency. Again, even if you think this ICE agent acted improperly or even illegally, to suddenly say, that's it, we need to investigate all of ICE. And, of course, you're hearing defund ICE, just like defund the police after George Floyd. This is all they know how to do. And there's no such thing as a reasonable moderate Democrat in this
case. ICE in 2026 is Doge of 2025 is, law enforcement of 2020. Like every few years, every wave, the left just latches on to people, to a group of civil servants to try to destroy them. It's laughable. It's predictable.
Meanwhile, in the District of Columbia, members of the D.C. Council are trying to urge Mayor Muriel Bowser to stop cooperations between MPD and ICE following the shooting in Minneapolis, as if one has anything to do with the other. Let me just say, if Muriel Bowser attempts to do that, say goodbye to home rule in the District of Columbia.
Absolutely.
It is 7:43.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
You know how every summer, like all the cruise ships or half of the cruise ships on the planet all descend on Alaska, and there's like endless Alaskan cruise.
Yes.
Have you ever done an Alaska cruise?
I have not done an Alaska cruise. I've just been to Alaska.
You have?
I know Chris Plant usually does. Yeah, I ran into a moose, literally. It was the most jarring experience.
Okay, well, I'll have to hear that story another time.
I'll tell you about it later.
But I do love that. I've done several Alaska cruises. It's fabulous. It's wonderful. Are you ready for the next frontier?
Okay.
I am.
Yeah.
How about a Greenland cruise? I am all over it.
Really?
Greenland will be
ice?
Well, what do you think Alaska is? Greenland is going to be the next tourist boom. I can tell you that, especially when the United States acquires it. Now, there's a couple of different angles on how this is going, and this is all stemming off of Marco Rubio telling Congress during a off-the-record session, which of course got leaked because that's what Congress does. He was asked, what's the deal with Trump talking about Greenland? And, of course, we know it is in our strategic best interest to have increased presence, if not full ownership, of this territory, because Denmark cannot defend it. That's just the bottom line. And it is incredibly valuable to China and Russia. Somebody's going to get there. China or Russia may very well do it. Denmark can't stop it. Then we will have to engage from our back heels. Much better for us to be there and already reposition. And so basically Marco Rubio said, yeah, it's important to our strategic defense. It's important for natural resources. So our plan is not to invade and take conquest of Greenland. We're going to do what Americans have always done with territories that we want for our own strategic purposes. We're going to buy it. And that makes a lot of sense, actually. By the way, here's a trivia question for you, Patrice. Don't look at our show prep. The answer's there.
Okay.
What was the last territory that the United States purchased from another country, and what country did we purchase it from?
It wasn't the Suez Canal, was it?
No,
From
we
Panama?
didn't purchase that. No. And actually, you're going to feel bad because these were neighbors of yours when you were born. The U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas. Those were the last territories that we purchased.
Oh,
and
wow.
who did we purchase it from? Denmark.
Oh, wow.
The same
History.
the same country that now claims colonial ownership of Greenland, even though Greenland is in our hemisphere, not Denmark's
interesting.
hemisphere. So listen, I mean, if any president is going to be able to pull this deal off, it's President Trump.
It would
currently,
be him.
Greenland is valued at $3.3 billion. Now, one way of taking care of this, I guess one of the plans is to give each resident up to $100,000 as part of the payoff. Well,
that's a lot of taxpayer money.
That would end up more than it could be between $500 million and $6 billion finally, because the population is only 57,000. It's all a possibility. It's all something that's being negotiated. It is the art of the deal. Either this is going to end up happening, or the president is going to secure a much better relationship with that territory and with the government of Denmark, who it's happening.
It's definitely a departure for historically how territories have been taken. Usually it was by brute force for quite a long time, and the Vikings and the Greenlanders know that very well.
Not America,
Not the United States. I'm talking about historically.
Other than the continental United States, which some could argue we took brutally from the Native Americans, but listen,
I'm not bashing the brute force approach. I mean, you also I love the shows. I watch them all the time.
Force. Absolutely.
And then you also have marrying, and you know what? I think we have here in our prep, maybe Baron can marry the Princess Isabella of Denmark. That would be an interesting way to do it.
So
or
this
you
is
just
the thing,
buy
Patrice.
it. Can
you see? By the way, everyone who says, "Why do we need that?" That's crazy. I'm thinking of Seward's Folly. That's what they called Alaska. When then Secretary of State Seward purchased Alaska for the United States of America. And if you think about the oil, you think about the natural resources.
Absolutely. The strategic geopolitical locationing.
The strategic, because back then, Russia was not an enemy, but now Alaska is critically important in our geopolitical defense against what was then the Soviet Union, is now Russia. This could be Trump's folly there at Greenland, and trust me, they'll be vindicated. But yeah, this is the last thing. Let's say Trump's at the negotiation table trying to work out a deal with the Danes, and then finally he just can't get it done. He's got to sweeten the pot. What's the cherry on top? It's being floated out there that perhaps an arranged marriage between the Crown Prince of the United States, that would be, of course, Baron Trump, who's quite a catch if you think about it.
Yes.
He's 19
My mind
years
is just
old.
blowing because I want to see Netflix or Amazon turn this into another series.
Phenomenal.
Are you kidding me? I can't wait to watch it.
The Crown Prince of the United States, Baron Trump, betrothed him to the Princess Isabella of Denmark and make that part of the deal to acquire Greenland. And, of course, Baron and Isabella could be the viceroys of Greenland and be rule over it. And I'm ready.
America given as the dowry. I just love the idea of dowries coming back. It's so 2026, Larry.
It's the golden era. 7:54.